So before we can go into the physiology of tanning, we need to remember there is a large precursor peptide or protein called POMC, which stands for pro-opiomelanocortin. And it's a precursor protein because when it is cut, it forms biologically active proteins that act as hormones. So there is a section that we'll call pro, a section we'll call opio, melano, and cortin. This part right here, the pro, that just gets cleaved off by enzymes in order to activate the rest of it. So this kind of keeps it inactivated. So we cleave off the pro, the opio gets cleaved off to become opiates like endorphins, things that are related to dopamine and serotonin and sexual function. The melano, this is going to become melanocyte stimulating hormone. So this is going to play a big role in the physiology of tanning. The cortin, this is going to become adrenocorticotropin hormone, ACTH. I'll go ahead and write that here. Adrenocorticotropin hormone, which is going to activate your adrenal gland to help regulate stress hormones, cortisol, but even blood sugar levels and protection from stress. It even helps play a role in suppressing inflammation. So this is a very important hormone to have in your body. And we'll also put here that the opiates, they go on and opioid goes on and becomes opiates, which helps explain why some people can become addicted to tanning because this is opiates. All right, so in our tanning, we're going to start, of course, with the source of UV radiation, which is the sun. We're going to draw a nice little sun here. And this is going to activate our melanocytes to make melanin in two different ways. One of them is a little bit longer, one of them is a little bit shorter. One goes through our skin and one goes through our eyes. So we're going to I'll draw through each of those pathways with you. The melanocyte, as you know, is in the base layer of our skin, and it has a cell body that is in the base layer of the skin, kind of anchored there. And then these long tentacle arms called dendrites that come up, and mine look kind of silly. And I'm only going to draw 4, but really one melanocyte can have many more dendrites. And these are coming into contact with many skin cells. Remember, a skin cell is called a keratinocyte, and one melanocyte can contact up to 40 keratinocytes, okay? So these are kind of scattered throughout your skin, and I'm going to draw your skin cells kind of like this. So the skin cells are in contact with the melanocyte, and each of these, of course, was made in mitosis in that base layer, the stratum basal, and they're called keratinocytes because they're full of keratin. So this UVB from the sun, there's UVA, UVB, UVC rays. Really the one that's going to cause this tanning reaction is UVB. So that's the one that we're going to focus on. So these UVB rays are going to hit the cells on your skin, and they're going to cause cell damage. And that cell damage physically to the cells is going to activate a tumor suppressor protein called P53. So this P53, it's in the cells. So we'll draw the next step here. This tumor suppressor protein, lowercase p53, gets activated. And what it does is it directly binds to the DNA in the cell itself. So you have the DNA inside the cell, it's inside the nucleus, of course. So the p53 goes and it binds directly to that DNA, and it says, it tells it to start transcribing and translating a protein. Okay, so it binds to the DNA, means it is a transcription factor because it binds directly to the DNA and causes transcription. So it binds to the DNA on the cell, right? So the cells begin to transcribe our big protein, pro-opiomelanocortin. So the keratinocytes, the cells, make pro-opiomelanocortin. Then it's going to get cleaved off and become all these things we talked about. But the one that we're going to follow really is the melanocyte stimulating hormone, or MSH. And of course, the opiates and the adrenocorticotropin hormone, those are going to go off, but we're going to follow the MSH because the MSH is going to come and bind to the melanocyte. So there is a receptor here called the MSH receptor, and it is on the surface of the melanocyte. So the MSH does not go into the melanocyte. Very important to know, it binds to the receptor on the outside and activates events inside, but the MSH does not ever go inside the melanocyte. So the events that get activated, this MSH receptor activates, and it causes a chain of events inside the melanocyte. So one of the things that happens is an enzyme on the inside gets activated called tyrosinase. Tyrosinase. Tyrosinase is activated, and it begins to make melanin. Melanin is a pigment, and the melanin pigment actually, it begins to travel up the dendrites. So I'm going to draw a little arrow here to show it's going up the dendrites, and then it's going to go out from the dendrites to these keratinocytes right here. So we'll imagine, or we'll draw here, that the melanin is going to this keratinocyte, and you have its nucleus, which is very exposed to this UVB. That means that bad things could happen. The DNA could get a mutation from the UVB rays. So right now, it is very exposed to this damaging UVB. Well, the melanin comes in and it covers it up. It fills and fills and fills and fills this keratinocyte and this keratinocyte and all the keratinocytes, and it creates like a helmet or an umbrella that guards uh, the DNA. So it surrounds the DNA so that the UVB rays can't get to it. Okay, it's like putting a shade over it. So since the UVB rays are they're not able to go and directly damage the DNA. The other way that the UVB rays can stimulate tanning in our body is through the eye. So these UVB rays, again, coming from the sun, UVB, they are going to come in contact with the eye. So we go outside and we're blinking. The sun is very bright, and our eyes sense the sun. And there's a nerve coming off the back of your eye called the optic nerve. And so the optic nerve sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which is in your brain. It's a gland in the brain, and it makes many hormones. But the one we're going to talk about is one that we mentioned right over here. So you have your pituitary. It kind of looks like this, with anterior and posterior. And the pituitary gland is activated, and it begins to produce and make pro-opiomelanocortin. Well, at exactly what happened over here, the pro-opiomelanocortin is going to get cleaved into many things. The one that we're going to focus on is the melanocyte stimulating hormone. The pituitary gland is activated and it makes pro-opiomelanocortin. And the MSH is cleaved off and it becomes an active hormone that goes and binds to the MSH receptor on melanocytes. So same thing, same receptor. This is going to cause some series of events that are going to activate tyrosinase inside the melanocyte, which produces melanin pigments, which then go up and fill the keratinocytes in our skin with melanin. So we'll add that here. Didn't add it before, so we'll add it. Both of these ways cause MSH to be produced. It stimulates the melanocyte to make melanin, and the melanin covers up or cloaks the nucleus to protect the DNA from the UVB rays, so they don't get a mutation. Now, what this means is if you're wearing sunglasses, then your eyes aren't going to sense how bright it is, and it may not prepare your skin for how bright it is outside. So there are some people that say that wearing sunglasses may actually cause you to get a more burnt when you're out in the sun. And there is some evidence in some studies to show that might be true. And now you know why, is because our skin can be directly activated to produce melanin, but also some of the signals for this protection of our DNA come through the eye.